Die young, stay pretty, Blondie sang in 1979, and their friend Jean-Michel Basquiat seemed to take it literally. By 27, he was rich, famous, dreadlocked, and dead from a heroin overdose in his New York apartment. In just 7 years, Basquiat had gone from street graffiti to art world sensation. Some held him as a genius, the voice of a generation. Others dismissed him as a slick self-promoter with more attitude than talent. But even death couldn't silence the debate, with major exhibitions like Basquiat and Banksy at the Hirshhorn Museum drawing global attention. The question isn't whether Basquiat mattered, it's why he still does. Was he a genius or just good at playing the game? Did the art world embrace him or exploit him? And if he hadn't died young, would we even care? It's those very questions, the mystery, the contradictions, the chaos, that turned Basquiat from man to myth. After his death in the summer of 1988, he wasn't just mourned, he was canonised. The world didn't bury him, it blew him up into something larger than life, a tragic genius, an art world comet who burned fast and disappeared before anyone could look away. People loved the story, the rebellious black prodigy from Brooklyn who broke into the pristine white walls of elite galleries with nothing but raw talent and a spray can. He didn't have formal training, didn't follow the rules, and that only made the legend grow. According to Australian art critic Robert Hughes, the scene was ready for a figure like him. Collectors were ready for a wild child, Hughes wrote after Basquiat's death, a curiosity, an urban noble savage. And Basquiat gave them exactly what they wanted, and maybe more than they could handle. In what felt like a blink, he became a star, not just in galleries, but on magazine covers, not just at art shows, but in nightclubs, surrounded by the biggest names in music and fashion. He was the guy in the paint-streaked Armani suit, barefoot at gallery openings, $100 bills spilling out of his pockets. He partied with Warhol, jammed with Bowie, and for a hot second, dated Madonna. By 1985, he was on the cover of the New York Times magazine, not as a curiosity, but as a cultural force. And like so many cultural forces who burn too hot, too fast, Basquiat seemed destined for an early end. His story fits neatly into that tragic genius mould, right next to the likes of Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain and James Dean. Young, beautiful, and dead before 30. It's the kind of narrative Hollywood loves, and sure enough, Julian Schnabel's 1996 biopic helped seal that image. The doomed artist with dreadlocks and demons who soared too high and crashed too soon. But by 2014 to 15, the conversations about Basquiat had started to change. Major retrospectives like the Guggenheims were no longer content to dwell on the myth of the tortured young star. Instead, they pushed deeper, focusing on the real heart of his work. Beneath all the chaos and fame, Basquiat wasn't just some graffiti kid who stumbled into the art world. He was self-taught, sure, but his paintings reveal a mind full of complexity, intention and raw power. What once looked like rough, spontaneous scribbles now feel more like a secret code, layered, sharp and fiercely deliberate. That complexity is rooted in where he came from. Yes, Basquiat exploded onto the scene from New York's graffiti world. Back in the late 70s, he and his high school friend Al Diaz created the street art collective known as Samo, tagging mysterious phrases on subway cars and buildings around Lower Manhattan. Those cryptic words weren't just rebellious graffiti, they were designed to catch attention, including from the art dealers prowling the neighbourhood. But let's not forget, Basquiat's story wasn't just about the streets. He came from a middle-class background too. His Haitian father was a successful accountant, and his Puerto Rican mother was a passionate supporter of his early artistic interests, taking him to museums and encouraging his creativity. This wasn't a kid from nowhere, absolutely not. He had roots, resources, and a real education in art from a young age. A crucial moment came in 1968, when, at 8 years old, Basquiat was hit by a car while playing in Brooklyn. During his long recovery, his mother handed him a copy of Gray's Anatomy, a detailed medical textbook filled with illustrations of the human body. those images would become a lasting influence on his work, so much so that he later named his experimental band Grey after the book. Even the rebellious graffiti-laced messages of Samo, phrases like "Samo saves idiots," were more than just street noise. They were carefully crafted to stand out and make an impact, signalling from the beginning that Basquiat had his sights set on more than just tagging walls. From the very start, he understood the game he was playing and made it clear he wanted to be more than just a street artist. He wanted to break into the art world and win on his own terms. That ambition took off in 1981 when Basquiat burst onto the scene with the group exhibition New York New Wave at PS1, a cutting-edge space for experimental artists. The show featured over 20 artists, but it was Basquiat who grabbed all the spotlight. His explosive presence didn't go unnoticed, and later that year, Art Forum magazine ran a major feature on him titled The Radiant Child, cementing his place as the artist to watch. With his reputation already climbing, Basquiat's first solo show in America opened the following spring at the Anina Nosei Gallery in New York, and it sold out on opening night, bringing in a staggering $250,000. That same year, 1982, he painted Dust Heads, a piece that would smash records decades later when it sold for nearly $49 million at auction. Alongside the raw energy of hip-hop and graffiti, he nodded to the giants of modern art: Picasso's fractured forms, Pollock's chaotic splatters, and Cy Twombly's scribbles. Even Leonardo da Vinci's anatomical drawings, which had fascinated him since childhood, made their way into his work, adding layers of meaning beneath the surface. But Basquiat's paintings weren't just about style or homage, they were supercharged with sharp political commentary. His work celebrated black icons, fighters, athletes, and heroes often ignored or erased by mainstream culture, because despite his growing fame, Basquiat was painfully aware of the everyday racism he faced, like the simple act of hailing a cab in Manhattan being denied to him. He didn't shy away from exposing these injustices, making his art a bold and unflinching critique of racial inequality in America. He was a very complex artist, once said Alvaro Rodriguez Fominaya of the Guggenheim Bilbao. What was unique about him at that particular time in the 80s was the way he combined sources from popular culture with sources from the history of art and literature, fusing everything together and also bringing in his own experience and racial identity. Sometimes you feel his mind was going faster than his hand. Yet, despite Basquiat's towering presence in popular culture and the deep respect he commands, the question remains: was he truly a genius? Or was he just exceptionally skilled at playing the game? Did the art world genuinely embrace his talent, or did he exploit the charisma and hype surrounding him? And perhaps most provocatively, if he hadn't died so young, would we even remember him today? These questions cut to the core of Basquiat's complicated legacy. On the one hand, there's no denying his raw talent. His ability to fuse street culture, history, politics, and personal experience into a visual language that felt urgent and fresh was groundbreaking. Critics and collectors alike were enthralled by his explosive energy and fearless expression, but the art world's machinery also rushed in too quickly, often packaging him as a star rather than allowing him the time and space to grow at his own pace. Some argue that Basquiat was caught in the relentless hype cycle, a young black artist thrust into the spotlight of a predominantly white and commercialised art market, eager for the exotic and rebellious figure. This environment sometimes reduced him to a symbol or a brand, rather than fully appreciating the nuance of his work and his evolving voice. Had Basquiat lived beyond his 27 years, it's possible his trajectory would have been different. Perhaps more measured, even less mythic. But the tragedy of his early death, much like other cultural icons before him, has immortalised him in a way few artists achieve. Whether genius or game player, Basquiat's lasting impact is undeniable because he challenged the art world's boundaries, forced conversations on race and identity, and left behind a body of work that still sparks fierce admiration and debate. In the end, that might be the most powerful legacy an artist can wish for. For anyone who loves art, Basquiat's story will change the way you see the world. So if his work speaks to you, don't just admire it from afar, dig deeper, challenge what you know, and let his fearless spirit inspire your own journey with art. What do you think? Was Basquiat a true genius, or just someone who knew how to play the game? And how does his story change the way you see art today? And does ours? Because here at Arts Wonders, we're all about changing the game and playing the change. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you're up for more perceptual challenges and game-changingness.